I remember the day I found out like it was a punch to the gut. The bank called, not with a polite reminder, not with a soft warning. They said, "Miss Wahab, your account shows multiple overdrafts, unpaid bills, legal action is possible." I laughed. Nervously, bitterly. "This isn't my account," I told them. "Are you sure?" the woman asked. Her tone didn't waver. She knew the answer before I did. I slammed the phone down and felt my knees go weak. I didn't even cry. Not yet. I just stared at the wall, my hands trembling, and then I saw it. The name on the application, my name. Layla, my sister. Layla had done this. I couldn't breathe. I walked into the kitchen where she was, humming, completely normal, like nothing had happened. "Laya," I said, my voice cracking. Did you apply for a credit card in my name?" She turned, her smile bright, casual. "What? No, why would I do that?" I laughed, short and harsh. "Why would you do that?" She frowned. "Wahab, you sound crazy." "Crazy?" I spat. "The bank called me. They said I stopped myself." I wanted to scream, but it came out as a whisper, used my name. Her eyes flicked to the counter, then down, then back up, pretending innocence. "Maybe there's a mistake." "A mistake?" I pressed. "Do you have any idea what this could do to me? To my credit? My life?" I thought it would be okay," she said finally, her voice small, almost like she was admitting something but still hiding behind a shrug. "Okay?" I laughed bitterly through tears. "Do you know what situ okay sept means? Do you know what trust means?" She looked away. Silence filled the kitchen. Thick, suffocating. My mind raced. I replayed everything. Every secret we'd shared. Every promise we'd made as kids. When did she become someone capable of this? "I always thought we were unbreakable," I said, my voice barely audible. "You were supposed to be the one person I could trust." She didn't answer. She couldn't. I could see it. The guilt, the fear, the shame, but not enough to make her stop. I sank into the chair, my hands shaking. I felt so small, so powerless. My own sister had taken a part of me, my identity, and weaponized it. "Why?" I whispered. "Why, Layla?" "I needed it," she said finally. Just those words, just that one simple sentence. I laughed again, hollow and broken. "Needed it? That seps it? You ruined me. You ruined us. For what?" She didn't have an answer. And in that silence, in that terrible quiet, I felt it, the first spark of something I couldn't ignore. Anger, betrayal, and the slow, terrifying clarity that I couldn't stay powerless. I would fix this. I had to. Not for her, not for the bank, for me. And deep down I knew whatever came next, nothing between us would ever be the same. Mom found me in the living room, curled up on the couch like I was a child again. "Wahab, honey, it's going to be okay," she said softly, placing her hand on my shoulder. I flinched, not because of her touch but because her words sounded like empty echoes. "Okay?" I asked, voice trembling. "Do you know what she did?" Mom sighed, sitting beside me. I know it hurts. Family hurts the most, I guess." I laughed bitterly, harsh and short. "Hurts the most? Mom, she stole my life. My name, my credit, my everything, and you say, family hurts the most." Her eyes welled up. "I'm sorry, Wahab. I truly am. Sorry, that word. It bounced off me like it couldn't reach the pain inside. I can steady even sleep," I admitted. "Every night I dream about the transactions, the calls from the bank, her smug face. I see it everywhere." Mom Sepp's hand gripped mine. "I wish there was something I could do." "There is something I can do," I said, voice low, trembling with rage. "But I don't know if it sets enough." She looked at me, worried. "Enough?" "Wahab, revenge isn't enough sometimes." I swallowed hard, anger and sadness twisting in my chest. Then what? Cry? Forgive? Pretend it didn't happen? Mom, she used my trust like it was disposable. Mom shook her head. "Honey, I know. Her voice faltered. "I wish it didn't have to be like this." I pulled away, pacing the room. My mind raced. Every whispered childhood promise, every hug, every shared secret, it all felt tainted now. "Do you know what friends are saying?" I asked suddenly, my voice sharp. What? That family betrayal's cut deeper than strangers' lies. I spat, feeling the words scrape my tongue raw. Mom didn't answer. She just watched me, and I could see the truth in her eyes. She knew. She knew the weight I carried. The betrayal I'd been swallowed by. I sank onto the floor, my head in my hands. Rage and sorrow collided in me. I wanted to scream. I wanted to cry. I wanted to vanish. But most of all, I wanted revenge. I imagined Lila's face, her casual smile, the ease with which she thought she could steal my life. My name, the arrogance, the confidence. She thinks she can get away with it, I muttered. She thinks I still just let her. Mom knelt beside me, hesitant. Wahab, don't let this consume you. Don't let her take that from you. I looked up, eyes burning. Consume me? I asked. Mom, it already has. Every thought, every moment, I can escape it. I can eat. I can eat. I can eat. I can sleep. She is everywhere I look. Her hand lingered on my arm, gentle, fragile. You stare strong, you stares find a way, you stare strong. No, I shouted, startling her. Silence hit the room like a thunderclap. Strong? I have to be stronger than strong. I have to be smart. I have to act. I could feel it, every detail of the financial mess she left behind, every transaction, every overdraft, every late fee. I traced them in my mind like a map. Obsessively, my identity had been hijacked, my life, stolen. Tears blurred my vision, but I didn't care. Crying wouldn't fix this. Complaining wouldn't fix this. Waiting wouldn't fix this. I one step recover by crying, I whispered, more to myself than to her. I have to act. I will act. Mom Such's eyes were wet. Her lips trembled. Just, be careful, Wahab. I nodded, though she couldn't know what I already decided. I would isolate myself. Study every number, every call, every hint she left behind. I would learn the patterns, the weak points, and then, I would take it back. This wasn't just about money. It was about identity, about trust, about justice. And deep down, I knew the first step toward healing wasn't forgiveness. It was control, power, revenge. I looked at the shadows creeping across the walls. They felt familiar now, safe, even. They mirrored the plan forming in my mind. I would be ready. I would make her regret every choice, every lie. I would take back what was mine. And nothing, no one would stand in my way. I knew I couldn't act blindly. Rage alone wouldn't win this. Not anymore. I whispered to myself in the dark. If she could exploit me, I can exploit her. I grabbed a notebook. Every transaction she made, every store she visited, every little habit, I wrote it down. She thinks I don't notice, I muttered. She thinks I once see the patterns. I could hear her in my mind, laughing. That smug smile. The one she wore like armor. I hated it. I hated her. But I needed it. I needed to remember why. I started tracking her favorite shops, the ones she swiped her card at every week. Coffee shops, clothing stores, the gym she paid for but never used. Every purchase, every bill, memorized, stored like ammunition. Every move you make, I'll see it, I whispered. I knew the law, just enough to bend it without breaking it. I opened a secret account in her name, carefully, strategically, not reckless, not sloppy. I told myself it was a lesson, a mirror. She stole my identity. Now I was giving her a taste of her own game. I practiced the words I would say if anyone asked. It's SEP's authorized, I whispered. All legal, all clean, all calculated. I could feel the adrenaline, the clarity that came only from focus. Anger alone had left me blind. But strategy was power. I replayed every betrayal in my head, every stolen moment of trust, every late-night whisper, every promise she broke, every casual lie she told, thinking I'd never notice. She thinks she owns me, I said under my breath. She thinks I step helpless, that ends now. I imagined her waking up, checking her balance, seeing something off, the confusion, the panic. I smiled, carefully, quietly. Satisfaction surged, but I pushed it down. I couldn't rush. Timing mattered. I isolated myself further. Nights blurred into obsessive calculations. I traced her spending like a predator circling prey. Patterns emerged, weaknesses revealed themselves. She has a favorite boutique on Fridays. She spends big when she seps stressed. She never checks statements in the mornings. That seps my window. I whispered each detail aloud, committing it to memory. Each fact became a weapon. Each habit, a tool. I didn't tell anyone what I was doing. Not mom, not a friend. No one. If they knew, they'd worry. But worry wasn't enough. They didn't understand. This wasn't just revenge. This was reclamation. Every detail matters, I muttered. Every mistake she seps made, I said'll turn it back on her. I reviewed the secret account, triple-checking every precaution, legal loopholes, anonymous transfers, ethical gray zones. I wasn't careless. One slip, and the tables would turn on me. You don't get to control me anymore, I said softly, staring at the ceiling. I said, not the scared little sister you betrayed. I could feel the scales tipping. Slowly, methodically, carefully. My heart pounded, but my mind was ice, cold, precise. I thought about confrontation, about the moment she would realize she'd been seen. The power shift already began in my head. She wants to know what hit her, I whispered. And when she does, she still remember exactly who she wronged. I rehearsed scenarios, bank calls, confused faces, her disbelief, my calm, my control. I imagined her rage, her apologies too late, my satisfaction, complete. I kept a record of everything, in case the law came sniffing. Every transaction I planned mirrored her patterns. Every move was a reflection, a lesson in karma. I could feel the anger simmering beneath the surface. But now it was focused, not blind, not chaotic. I had a target, a plan, a strategy. She thought she could take my life, my name, my peace, I whispered. She was wrong. I spent nights immersed in spreadsheets, logs, notifications, alerts. My apartment became my war room. The world outside faded, only the plan mattered, only the turn I would make. I imagined the final act, her face when she saw it, the balance finally restored, the power I would reclaim, quiet but absolute. I sipped. "I'm done being the victim," I whispered. "This ends with me on top." I leaned back, eyes closed, heartbeat steady. For the first time in weeks, I felt control. Control over my anger, control over my life, control over her. The first step was clarity. The second step, execution. And I would not fail. Not now, not ever. I waited. Not for her apology, not for recognition, for the perfect moment, the window where her guard was down. I started small, a coffee here, a boutique purchase there. Nothing that would trigger alarms immediately, just enough to test boundaries, feel the thrill. She once said, "See it coming," I whispered to myself, fingers trembling slightly as I confirmed each transaction. She once said, "Notice, not yet." I imagined her face when she checked her balance. The confusion, the panic, the sudden recognition that something was off. My lips curled into a smile I couldn't contain. Quiet, dark. "Why is it always me?" I muttered, not really to anyone. Because I let her, because I trusted her. That ends now. Every transaction became a message. Silent, invisible, personal, a whisper she couldn't hear, but would feel. I went about my day like nothing had changed. Mom called, worried. "You look tired, Wahab. Are you sleeping?" I laughed lightly. "I said, I'm fine, Mom. Really, just busy at work." Busy, I thought, smirking to myself. Busy watching her unravel in silence. I replayed the scene in my head. Layla logging in, checking her statements, her confusion morphing into panic, that smug confidence cracking like glass under pressure. Perfect. I made another small purchase, a dinner at her favorite restaurant. I imagined her surprise when she realized she hadn't been there. How could she not notice? I whispered, shaking my head with quiet satisfaction. I kept my face calm, cheerful, trusting. The mask was effortless now. No one suspected a thing. Not Mom, not my friends, not Layla. "She thinks she's safe," I said under my breath, tracing the screen of my laptop. "She thinks I still the little sister she can manipulate." I tracked her habits like a predator. Fridays she ordered takeout from that expensive bistro. Tuesdays her boutique trips. I mirrored her timing, her patterns, staying just ahead. A thrill surged every time a charge went through. Not reckless joy, calculated. Precise, silent revenge. I could feel the scales tipping, invisible but undeniable. Each swipe, each transaction, a thread tightening around her. Mom called again. Wahab, are you eating? Yes, Mom, I replied softly, smiling into the phone. Dawn set worry about me. Her voice worried me more than I wanted to admit. But I couldn't let her see it. I couldn't let anyone see it. My satisfaction was mine, dark, private, addictive. I imagined Lila pacing her apartment, checking her account, her eyes narrowing in disbelief. This can't be right, I heard her saying in my mind. I didn't sit. Exactly. I made another purchase. A small electronics order she'd been considering. I laughed quietly, imagining her shock. My heart beat faster, a rhythm of control and focus. She thinks she owns me, I whispered. She doesn't even realize I've been in control the whole time. I replayed every moment she betrayed me, every whispered lie, every casual theft of my trust, every smile she wore while my life was quietly dismantled. This is payback, I thought. Quiet, invisible, untraceable until she feels it too late. I started keeping a journal, not just of purchases but of her patterns, her habits, her weaknesses. A map. A plan. My strategy unfolding. The thrill wasn't just in the money, it was in the power. The tables had turned and she had no idea. I controlled the narrative. I dictated the consequences. I was the silent shadow she couldn't see. Another transaction went through. I imagined her checking the statement, confusion blooming into panic. I whispered, soft, dark, enjoy your little surprises, Lella. Every one of them is yours. I couldn't let anyone know. Even the smallest hint of excitement would ruin the balance. The secrecy fed me. The quiet satisfaction became addictive. I kept my public face serene, calm, laughing with friends, smiling at work, the cheerful, trusting sister everyone knew, the one Layla had underestimated. I whispered to myself at night, alone in the dark. For the first time since her betrayal, I feel in control, and I sup not letting go. The thrill was terrifying, delicious. I knew the first visible consequences were coming. The first panic she'd feel, the first realization she wasn't untouchable. I would savor it quietly, privately. Control, I said softly. This is mine. Every step, every moment, mine. The silent strike had begun, and once it landed there would be no turning back. It didn't take long. Her smugness, her confidence, the way she walked around like nothing could touch her, it all started to crumble. Slowly, quietly, deliciously. I saw her at the kitchen table, hunched over her laptop, fingers trembling, eyes darting. What the? She muttered under her breath. That can be right. I stayed in the living room, pretending to scroll through my phone, calm, cheerful, trusting. She thinks I don't know, I whispered to myself, a dark thrill curling inside me. She thinks I step still, the scared little sister she used to manipulate. Dad walked in, noticing her tension. Layla, are you okay? You look stressed. She froze, caught mid-gesture. Fine, Dad. Just tired, I guess. Just tired? He asked, raising an eyebrow. Are you? Star not sleeping? Something sups off. I kept my voice low when I spoke. Casual, maybe she steps just stressed about work. Dad nodded, unconvinced, and left the room. Lila exhaled sharply, muttering, no one understands, this is instead my fault. I smiled quietly. Not your fault? I whispered. You made it your choice. Her panic grew in increments. I could almost measure. She double-checked statements, triple-checked accounts, called the bank, hung up frustrated. She blamed everyone but herself. She seeps unraveling, I murmured, the word tasting sweet. Every carefully constructed lie, every mask is slipping. I imagined her sleepless nights, the whispered apologies she muttered to herself, her voice catching in panic. Sorry, I didn't think, I didn't mean. I stayed calm, my facade intact, smiling at dinner, chatting lightly. Dad glanced at me once, noticing nothing. Layla glared at me from across the table, frustration burning behind her eyes. What's wrong with you? She hissed quietly when she thought I couldn't hear. I laughed softly. Nothing at all. Why do you ask? Her jaw tightened. Silence. then muttered curses under her breath. She was unraveling, and I didn't need to touch her, didn't need to speak a word of accusation. The tension did all the work. I watched her check the account again at night. Her shoulders hunched, her brow furrowed. This isn't sept happening. This isn't sept real. I whispered in the dark, alone in my room. It's sep's real, and it's sep's happening because of choices. Every betrayal has consequences. She stopped trusting herself. Every instinct, every plan, every confident stride she used to have gone, replaced with paranoia. I remembered all the times she'd laughed while I panicked. Every lie, every casual betrayal, every stolen promise. Now she was tasting it. Slowly, quietly. Precisely. I wasn't cruel. I wasn't vindictive. I was exact, surgical. I caught a glimpse of her crying softly, alone in her bedroom, whispering apologies she would never dare say to me. She sep's breaking herself, I said, voice low, almost a whisper, and I didn't set even have to move a muscle. I imagined her walking into the office, trying to act normal, the tiny flickers of panic crossing her face. The trembling hands she tried to hide. Dad questioned her again. Layla, what sep's happening? You sub never looked like this before. She hesitated, stammered. Fine, Dad. Really, just a lot going on. I smiled faintly from the hallway. A lot going on? I whispered. No, just the consequences of your choices. Each tiny victory, her confusion, her sleepless nights, her whispered apologies was a reminder that betrayal had its price. I leaned back against the wall, calm, serene. The storm she'd created for me was now unraveling around her. And for the first time in weeks, I felt it. Control, precision, satisfaction. Not loud, not reckless, just perfect. The mask she'd worn for years, the one she used to intimidate, manipulate, and control, it was cracking. And I was here, watching, waiting, knowing that the balance had finally started to shift. Betrayal had consequences, and she was learning them, quietly, painfully, irrevocably. I knew the small strikes weren't enough anymore. Not for the damage she'd done, not for the trust she'd shattered. It was time to escalate. I leaned over my laptop, fingers hovering, heart pounding. Every calculation had been rehearsed. Every scenario mapped, every loophole checked. This is it, I whispered to myself. One move, full control. I used her credit for a major investment, careful, legal, precise, nothing reckless, just enough to entangle her financially, to leave breadcrumbs she couldn't ignore. I documented everything. Every transaction, every confirmation, every email. I created a trail of proof that couldn't be denied. She thinks she's sep's untouchable, I murmured, tracing the screen with my finger. She has no idea who she's sep's dealing with. I imagined her checking the statement for the first time, her eyes widening, her heart skipping, the disbelief, the fear. Impossible. I could almost hear her voice, trembling in panic. I kept my public face calm, cheerful, trusting, family dinners, casual smiles, friendly chatter, no hint of what was happening behind the scenes. Layla had no idea the tables had turned, and that secrecy, that silence was intoxicating. I whispered to myself, dark and satisfied, every choice she made, every betrayal comes back to her now. I felt a rush of adrenaline, sharper than any anger before. Revenge wasn't emotional anymore. It was strategic, surgical, complete. I imagined the first confrontation, the moment I could show her everything. The evidence, undeniable, irrefutable. The tables flipped, the power finally mine. She underestimated me, I said softly, my lips curling, and that mistake will cost her. I slept easily that night, not because the world was calm, but because I knew the strings were in my hands. Every move she made, every panic, every sleepless hour, I had orchestrated. Morning came, I checked the accounts, calm, precise. Layla's habits were still predictable. Her favorite stores, the same weekly withdrawals, the tiny missteps I had already mapped. I smiled, noting each one. You never thought I stead fight back, I whispered, but I stead not scared anymore. I stead men smart. I stead men precise. I stead men control. I recalled every moment she'd betrayed me, every lie she'd told, every casual theft of my trust. Each memory fueled the audacity in me. Each memory became a tool. I plotted the next steps quietly. Small moves, strategic escalations, nothing reckless. Each transaction, each decision, bringing her closer to a reckoning she couldn't avoid. She steps untouchable no more, I murmured, feeling a thrill of power, and I hold the keys. I imagined her checking her statement tomorrow, her eyes narrowing in disbelief, hands trembling, the panic creeping in slowly. Perfect. I reviewed the documentation again. Every email, every confirmation, every legally binding note. I kept meticulous records. No loopholes, no mistakes. I could feel her panic as if it were my own heartbeat. I could see her pacing, muttering apologies to herself, frantically trying to fix what she'd never controlled in the first place. She thought she owned me, I whispered. Voice low, dark. She had no idea. I'd been the one in control all along. The adrenaline surged again, this time tempered with satisfaction, not rage, not anger, power, precision, revenge, perfected. I imagined the confrontation when the time came, the look in her eyes, the disbelief, the realization that she had underestimated me, that every choice she made had been silently countered. She can escape this, I whispered. Not now, not ever. Every move she thought was safe. Mine. For the first time in months, I felt complete. Calm, strategic, empowered, the fear that had haunted me, the helplessness, the betrayal, all replaced with control. I leaned back in my chair, exhaling slowly, my heartbeat steady, my mind sharp. The strings were mine, every thread, every loop, every possible consequence, I held them all. She's not untouchable, I said softly, and she never will be again. I smiled in the darkness, alone, knowing the game had shifted entirely. The first strike had been silent. The escalation was deliberate, the endgame, inevitable. And I would not fail. Not now, not ever. I knew this moment would come. I called her into the living room. Calm, steady, controlled. She walked in, face pale, defensive, lips pressed tight, eyes darting. What? What's this about? She asked, voice shaky. I gestured to the table, every document, every transaction, every email I'd meticulously collected, laid bare before her. I know what you did, I said softly. And now this is what it costs you. Her eyes widened, disbelief, fear, shame. I could see it all flicker across her face in seconds. This can be real, she whispered. I didn't flinch. I didn't speak another word. I let the evidence speak. Every number, every purchase, every legally binding document, it screamed her betrayal louder than I ever could. Mom stood behind me, silent, tears streaming. She didn't say a word. Her quiet presence was heavier than anything. Lila Sepp's hands shook as she reached for a paper. I didn't mean. You didn't mean to steal my life? I interrupted, voice calm but cutting. To betray me? To think it wouldn't matter? Her lips quivered. No words came. Nothing could undo the months of manipulation, the lies, the casual theft of my identity. I watched you, I said, eyes locked on hers. Every transaction, every habit, every mistake you thought was invisible. I documented it, carefully, precisely, legally, ethically. She sank into the couch, silent. No excuses, no defenses, just the weight of everything she'd done. I didn't think, she stammered. Didn't think, I repeated, my voice low, deliberate. That step's what cost you. Every choice you made had consequences, Lila, and now you're seeing them. Her hands covered her face. Silent sobs escaped. Guilt, fear, disbelief. A cocktail she hadn't prepared for. Mom reached out, hand on my shoulder. Her eyes met mine. I nodded slightly. She understood. She'd seen the months of planning, the careful silence, the strategy. You broke trust, I said, softer now. You broke respect. You broke dignity, not just for me, for everyone around you. Lila lifted her head, eyes wet, wide, uncomprehending. I didn't know. You should have known, I said. You knew exactly what you were doing, and now, look at you. I gestured again to the evidence. Every little thing you thought would never be noticed, every habit, every slip, every swipe, it steps all here, and it steps all yours to face. She swallowed hard, staring at the table like it had swallowed her whole. For once she was exposed. Vulnerable. Defenseless. I'm sorry, she whispered, voice barely audible. Sorry doesn't fix what you did, I said, but you can learn from it. You can understand the weight of your choices. That step's all you can do now. Mom's tears fell freely. Silent, sorrowful, witnessing both the betrayal and the reckoning. She didn't interfere. She didn't defend. She simply watched justice unfold quietly, painfully. Lila Sepp's chest heaved. She tried to speak again. Please, I can. I shook my head. No. Not yet. You need to understand. And seeing this, feeling it, maybe itself finally sink in. She slumped further, shame pressing down on her. I didn't gloat. I didn't celebrate. I simply let the silence hang, let her feel the weight of what she'd done. For the first time since her betrayal, she was the one exposed, not me, not the victim. I felt a strange clarity, a cold satisfaction. Months of careful planning, quiet strikes, silent revenge, it had led to this. The reckoning, the confrontation, the undeniable shift in power. She thought she could own me, I whispered quietly, almost to myself, but now she knows who I am, what I set been capable of. Layla's eyes met mine finally, wide, raw, unguarded. No mask, no confidence, nothing left to hide behind. And in that moment I felt it. The final piece of control. The balance restored. And the truth, undeniable, silent, complete, settled over us all. The waiting was over. The banks, the legal channels, they did the work I couldn't show, but I watched every call, every email, every notice that reached her inbox. She's finally paying, I whispered to myself, a quiet thrill curling inside me, every swipe, every charge, she can hide from it now. I didn't gloat. Not openly. I didn't need to. Watching was enough. The slow, inevitable collapse of her arrogance was all the satisfaction I required. Her phone buzzed constantly. Notifications she couldn't ignore. Alerts she couldn't dismiss. Every purchase she had made in my name now demanded repayment. Legally, undeniably, painfully. She thought she was untouchable, I murmured, tracing the edge of the table with my finger. Thought she could steal from me, lie to me, escape consequences. Not anymore. I imagined her face as she realized the pattern, how her own carelessness, her own exploitation of trust, mirrored now in reverse. Every swipe she thought she'd hidden, exposed. Every choice she had made, every corner she had cut, reflected back at her in cold, hard reality. She called my name, voice shaking. Wahab, this I can spet. I know, I said calmly. You can set, and that set's exactly the point. Her hands trembled. She sank into the couch, head in her hands. For the first time she wasn't defensive. She wasn't smug. She wasn't in control. I watched her crumble, not with malice but with the satisfaction of balance restored, the karmic scales tipping finally inexorably in my favor. She underestimated me, I whispered softly. And now, every lesson she taught me, every betrayal she inflicted, her calls to the bank only made it worse. Each clarification, each negotiation, each desperate attempt to salvage dignity, futile. I can believe this is happening, she muttered, more to herself than anyone else. You did this, I said, quietly, firmly. Every choice, every lie, every swipe, every breach of trust, it all led here. Mom sat silently behind me. Tears had dried on her cheeks, but her eyes were wide, reflective, witnessing justice unfold, without interference, without commentary. She understood the weight of months, of betrayal, of strategy. Layla's shoulders slumped further. Arrogance, pride, entitlement, all crumbling into humiliation. But alive, that was important. Alive to remember, alive to understand consequences. I leaned back, letting the silence fill the room, let her guilt and panic reverberate in their natural rhythm. No shouting, no drama, just the quiet, devastating inevitability of her reckoning. She thought she could play with my life, I murmured. Thought she could take what was instead hers. But I played smarter. I waited. I documented. I executed. Each update from the bank confirmed it. The debts she had accrued were hers now, fully accountable, publicly embarrassing, undeniably hers. Every swipe she had made against me, paid back in her own currency, in her own way. You can undo this, I said, voice calm but piercing, and you can blame anyone but yourself. She looked up, eyes wide, searching for a lifeline. I didn't mean. Intent doesn't erase impact, I interrupted. You made choices, now you face them. That steps all justice ever is. She sank back again, exhausted, overwhelmed, humiliated, but alive. And that mattered, not cruelty, not revenge for the sake of rage. Just balance restored. I could feel the storm of anger and satisfaction settling in me, like a tempest finally finding the shore. My hands unclenched, my chest eased, the weeks of fear, betrayal, sleepless nights, all converging into a quiet, victorious calm. She learning, I whispered, not from me, but from herself. From what she created, from what she deserved. Her phone buzzed again. A new notification. I smiled faintly, almost imperceptibly. Every small alert was a reminder. Every digital footprint she left was a mirror of her own choices. You were arrogant, I said softly, to no one but the room. You thought you could escape accountability. You were wrong, completely wrong. Layla finally spoke, voice raw. I understand now. I see. I didn't respond. I let her silence. Her shame, her realization speak louder than any words I could have used. Months of strategy, patience, calculated strikes, had led to this full control, vindication, justice served. I leaned back in my chair, breathing slow, steady, the calm after the storm. She thought she could take my life, my trust, my peace, I whispered quietly. But she only taught me how to take it back, fully, completely, and without losing myself in the process. I watched her, defeated but alive, humbled but intact, and I knew it was enough. Enough to reclaim my power, enough to close the chapter, enough to feel whole again. The storm had passed. I woke one morning and realized I was calm, really calm. The chaos, the betrayal, the sleepless nights, all echoes now, fading but never gone. Mom sat across from me at the kitchen table, her eyes soft, cautious. You've changed, she said quietly. I smiled faintly, sipping my coffee. I have, and not just in ways you see. She nodded, understanding without needing more words. She knew the battle had been more than numbers, more than transactions. It had been mine. My fight, my reclaiming. I looked around the house. Everything felt familiar again, yet different. The air seemed lighter. The spaces weren't haunted by fear anymore. They were mine, my peace, my control. Are you okay? Mom asked, a hint of worry still lingering. I am, I said, voice steady. I really am. It's strange how much can change in a few months. How much I changed. I thought of Lila, of her panic, her humiliation, the collapse of her arrogance. I didn't feel glee anymore. That part of me, the part that had lived in rage, had softened into quiet clarity. She taught me more than she knows, I whispered to myself, about strength, about patience, about precision. Mom reached over, hand warm on mine. Proud of you, she said. But careful, power can be heavy even when earned. I nodded, absorbing the weight of her words. I had carried it. I had learned from it. And now, I could lay it down, not out of weakness, but because I had no need to wield it recklessly. The scars remained, subtle, invisible to anyone who didn't know the story, but I felt them, and I acknowledged them. They were reminders, proof that I had survived, that I had endured, that I had risen. I forgive myself, I whispered, for the anger, the bitterness, the nights I thought I would never sleep. I forgive myself for letting her hurt me, for letting her steal pieces of me, and I embrace the strength it gave me. Mom smiled, quietly proud. Not celebratory, not loud, just understanding. Life returned to a new rhythm. I checked my accounts, my name restored, my finances mine again. I walked with a steadiness I hadn't known before, a quiet confidence that no one could shake. Lala's betrayal lingered like a shadow, but it no longer defined me. I had reclaimed every part of myself she had tried to steal. I sup not weak, I whispered softly, and I sup not untouched, but I am, me whole, strong, unbroken. I looked in the mirror and saw someone different, Not just the same person, but someone wiser. Someone tempered by fire, sharpened by betrayal, solidified by revenge executed with precision. Mama Sep's voice broke the silence. You Sep's risen, truly. I nodded. I've risen, I said. Quietly, calmly, victoriously. The world hadn't changed. Layla hadn't changed, but I had, and that was enough. I stepped outside, sunlight brushing my face. I inhaled deeply, free, light, in control. My name, I whispered, feeling its weight, its truth, my life, mine again. And I meant it, every word, every breath, every pulse of strength that carried me forward. The past would linger, but I didn't need it to define me. I was beyond her, beyond the betrayal, beyond the rage. I had risen. And I would continue to rise.